Presentation of dialogue on Idaho Public Television is made possible through the generous support of the Laura Moore Cunningham Foundation, committed to fulfilling the Moore family's legacy of building the great state of Idaho.
Does having arthritis mean you can no longer be an athlete? Not if you're a U.S. and Olympic team skier Libby Ludlow. Find out how to live and compete with arthritis. Stay tuned. Dialogue is next. Hello, I'm Joan Cartan-Hansen. Thank you for joining us here on Idaho Public Television, on the World Wide Web, and on public radio stations. Libby Ludlow started skiing at 2 and was competing by the age of 6. She made the U.S. ski team when she was 16, and over the next 10 years, she held a National Giant Slalom Championship, was ranked 10th in the world in the Super G, and competed in the 2006 Olympics. She was also diagnosed with arthritis. Libby Ludlow joins us now to talk more about being a world-class athlete and an arthritis sufferer. Thank you for being here. I appreciate you being here.
It's great to be here.
Also joining us to talk about arthritis and sports training are Dr. Achini Dingman, a rheumatologist and with Saint Alphonsus. Thank you for being here, Doctor.
Thank you.
And joining us is Craig Jussel, Director of Saint Alphonsus Rehabilitation Services and a physical therapist. Thank you for being here.
Thank you so much.
Appreciate it.
Thank you.
And I'm sorry, because we're interviewing, we're not taking any questions, but I do have some Facebook and email questions, and just not the phone questions. Let me ask you a little bit about skiing. What was it about this sport? I mean, you did a lot of other things, soccer, track. What was it about skiing that just captured your life?
Well, I love the outdoors, and I had 2 older brothers that I grew up chasing after skiing at Crystal Mountain in Washington, and I just loved going fast and having the wind in my face, and I had to do everything that my brothers were doing, and so I just kind of chased them around, and I got good at a pretty young age, and I loved it. How could I not love it? It was great to be in the outdoors, and just skiing around with my friends is great.
One of the first questions that came in through the email was, how did you find the courage to take skiing at such speeds on such steep terrain and under such intense pressure? How did you get out of that gate?
Well, actually, you're standing in the gate, and you know that there's just a lot of danger that lies before you. I mean, one caught edge or one tactical error, and you can be down for the count and crashing and tumbling through snow fencing. And so it's a dangerous sport. There's a lot of risk. But, you know, I trained a lot, had a lot of mileage under my belt, cultivated a lot of confidence through my training and my physical conditioning. And once I went out of the start gate, the intensity of focus really just kept me so in the present moment that even if something went slightly wrong, if I did catch an edge or something went slightly wrong, I never really lost my cool because I was really quite focused. And it's amazing the sense of quiet and serenity that I would feel, and that just being in the moment and being so focused, even though what I was doing was pretty chaotic and crazy.
Did you ever have one of those, magnificent crashes that we see when we watch competitive skiing?
I've had a lot of crashes. Unfortunately, none of the really dramatic ones were caught on video. And unfortunately, actually or maybe not unfortunately, but my injuries actually took place mostly just landing off of jumps where I didn't crash at all, where just my joints took such a tremendous load from landing off a jump. When you're going 60 miles an hour and landing on rock hard ice, it doesn't necessarily take a fall to sustain an injury.
Let me now ask, as we're talking about this injury, is that common, that kind of an injury coming, not necessarily in the big crash, but off the jump?
Oh, certainly. The impact that Libby is describing is nothing that I've experienced at that level of athlete, but it's a tremendous amount of pressure to the knee joints and the rest of her body, certainly, so not surprising at all.
Right, I agree. I think your body is built to sustain certain forces, and then there's times if you exceed them that just the physics of your body can't handle it, and then something will give. So,
as an athlete, how did you prepare for your body for this kind of wear and tear?
Tremendous amount of physical conditioning, so a lot of strength and plyometric work, and then obviously a lot of cardiovascular training. I did a lot of my weight training in the gym. At the beginning of my career, I was lifting some very heavy weights, and then over the course of my career, I think I kind of smartened up and did a lot more functional strength training that was kind of higher reps and lower weight, and just got as big and strong as possible because when you're going down a mountain and sustaining or trying to withhold that many G-forces, the stronger you are, the better able you are to resist the tremendous forces that the body is taking.
What was it like to get the diagnosis of arthritis?
It was really surprising for me. I had had 2 ACL, anterior cruciate ligament tears, and 1 in each knee, and some pretty bad meniscus damage already in my career. And the time that I was diagnosed with arthritis, I had a lot of swelling in my joint. At first, the doctors, they couldn't tell what was going on. I had a lot of swelling and pain and had a hard time walking. They had no idea really what was going on, and they went in for surgery and kind of didn't know until they went in really what was happening in there. And I was really surprised and really pretty scared and lost. I didn't know what that would mean for my career, but also for my long-term health. And so it was a pretty scary and confusing time in my career.
Now, do you have now there's 2, well, perhaps Dr. you can start by going, there are different kinds of arthritis.
Right. There are actually over 100 different types of arthritis. And the main ones that people think about when they think about arthritis is osteoarthritis, which is what we typically will think of as wear and tear arthritis. And then the other type of arthritis is an inflammatory arthritis, and the most common that's known of that is rheumatoid arthritis.
And is yours rheumatoid or osteo?
Osteo, so the articular cartilage on my femur is kind of degenerating, so to say.
So you get this diagnosis. What did it mean for your skiing career?
It meant just some changes in my approach to my physical conditioning, a few lifestyle changes. I really had to pay attention to what I was putting into my body to make sure I was providing the really sound and healthy environment for my knee to heal and regenerate. And I had to kind of modify my training program, not only off snow but on snow. Sometimes it meant I would take less runs than my teammates would be, but mostly just really tuning into my body and what it was telling me. Pain is a signal, and so I would just have to listen to what my body was saying and kind of cater my training and my racing to what my body was saying to me.
Well, let me ask you about pain. When should you see it? When is joint pain a signal you should see a doctor?
I think joint pain is something that any one of us can experience at any time in our life. When you need to seek further medical advice or look into it further is when it's starting to impact your quality of life. Or if other people are noticing that you're moving a little bit differently or they're commenting, even if maybe you yourself, your pain level isn't as severe. And so those are times that you should seek further intervention and evaluation.
And when should you see a physical therapist?
Well, we work in concert with physicians, and I certainly agree with Dr. Dingman's comments. It's we often see patients who just kind of believe that this is just normal and nice aches and pains and it'll go away, and regrettably they don't communicate often timely with their doctors, and they start limiting activities too excessively. They become sedentary, and it has really a complex factor on their whole life. So really, again, as Dr. Dingman said, if there's a functional change, having problems doing normal activities, going for walks, going for shopping, and ADL activities of daily living, so normal things like doing laundry, cooking, getting in and out of the bathtub or shower. If you're impacted by those things, you need to see a physician.
It didn't stop you from skiing, though, a diagnosis of arthritis.
It didn't. I am young. I was young at the time when I was
diagnosed.
Yeah. And luckily, I just really committed to providing a very healthy environment for my knee to heal, and worked with my physical therapist very closely and my doctor just to design a really smart program for me to continue with my sport. I made some changes, and I had to cut some things out, had to change my training program and my diet a little bit, but for the most part I could just continue and ski and do what I loved and pursue my dreams.
Could you tell me a little bit more about you said changing the environment to help your knee heal? What did that mean?
Well, I guess I would say one day I just I've been told that my knee was degenerating, and I was, 23, 24 at the time, and that didn't sound right to me. And so I kind of came to the realization that body is meant to regenerate, not degenerate. It just needs to be provided the right things, the right environment to regenerate. And so I committed to just doing things that would provide a healthier environment for my knee. I was already an athlete. I already did many, many things that were very healthy, but it was little things like quitting drinking coffee. I was a college student, and if I could stop drinking coffee, maybe I would absorb my nutrition a little bit better. And just, like I said, change my training program. But nutrition is huge, and just kind of really focusing on finding balance in my body. So I practiced yoga. I've practiced yoga for quite some time. It's really, really fantastic for the joints to build flexibility and stability at the same time. So kind of balance, whole body health and balance.
Let me divide those up just and ask the two of you. Are there foods that you can eat that improve arthritis, the condition of your joints? Are there foods that are bad for your joints?
I wouldn't say necessarily that I could say there's foods that are bad. However, there's always ongoing studies looking into what are supplements, or is there anything that could be helpful. And there's things that antioxidants that can be helpful, fish oil supplementation that can be helpful, and specifically in patients with inflammatory arthritis as well, there have been studies that show that does seem to give some benefit, maybe not entirely to the point where you can get rid of all the other medications, but I think anything that you can put into your body that will go generally in the right direction that you want to go in is a good way to pursue. And overall, in terms of nutrition, I think you just want to have a healthy diet. You don't want to be taking in excessive calories, more than you can burn off, because you'll end up putting pounds on and putting more stress on your joints. So I think there's not a magic diet.
Right.
Darn.
I know.
Let me ask about yoga. You teach yoga now. That's one of the things that you've done post-skiing career. Why yoga? What is it about that particular sport that you find so important in your life?
Yeah, I've been practicing yoga for 12 years, and now I'm an instructor, and it was a really natural transition for me because it's a lifestyle. I mean, yes, in the Western world we kind of associate the physical practice as being yoga, but for me it's just holistic wellness, like physical, mental, spiritual wellness, and the physical practice of yoga, asanas, like I said, it's a very integrated and balanced approach to stability, flexibility, and strength, and so it just makes my body feel fantastic, and likewise mentally and spiritually, so it's a great thing to be doing.
And I assume you approve of yoga? Oh,
absolutely. We use it commonly in our practice, and certainly refer to qualified instructors for yoga and so forth. It's what's often we find with patients, and Libby would understand this, and Dr. Dingman, is it's normal for your body to have imbalances, as you mentioned, in muscles. Muscles can become unknowingly a little bit weak or a little bit strong. Joints can become tight, they can become loose, and it's somewhat silent. But those abnormal imbalances in the body can actually manifest and increase pressure in your joints. So working with somebody who can determine where you have muscle concerns as far as inflexibility, joint restrictions, muscle weakness on one side of the body versus the other, which is very, very common, it really influences especially osteoarthritis and these kind of conditions.
And when you work with an athlete and you're teaching an athlete, what do you look for to keep them competitive?
Well, yoga is great for injury prevention, but it also enhances performance because you're building balance in the muscles around a joint. For example, the knee is moved by a quadricep muscle and a hamstring muscle. If you have, so they're antagonist muscles. If you have one that's stronger or more tight than the other, then your knee joint isn't going to function properly. So for me, it's about finding balance in the individual person. So ideally, you can look at a student or a yoga practitioner and ideally cater their practice specifically to them. If they have a tight hamstrings, then try to loosen their hamstrings so they can find balance in their knee joint or hip joint.
And how do you work with athletes to keep them competitive?
Well, as I think Libby's already touched on the main elements. With athletes, it's oftentimes trying to get them to pace themselves, be consistent with a more refined and specific regimen where their whole life they're used to working as hard as they can. Pain isn't an issue, and they push through. So it's kind of ironic with therapists, athletes, a lot of time we're saying, please just slow down, let's pace yourself, we want to work you back into your sport safely. And a lot of the community is very sedentary, and it's just really the opposite. We're often saying, please, we need you to be more physically active and so forth. So they both have very common aspects too, but you have to take a really different approach with it. And I'm sure you work with both athletes and non-athletes, right?
Yeah. And when I was an athlete, my physical therapist was constantly telling me to slow down. Athletes tend to have a strong motivation to get out there and get back as fast as they can, in some ways to their detriment, because the body can only heal so fast, and so kind of slowing down is sometimes a better thing to do for athletes.
Let me throw some of the Facebook and email questions that we received. Elaine would like to know how toxic emotions contribute to your disease, or contributed to
that's an interesting question. I think when I was first diagnosed with my arthritic condition, I was really negative, and I definitely believe that there's a correlation between what your mind is telling your body and what is actually happening in your body. Once I made that mental shift to the place where I decided that no, my body's meant to regenerate, I'm young, and I committed to that process, the positivity and the mental approach just completely changed, and it was a much more much stronger momentum and a much better, healthier, happier place to be, because in my mind I had a goal, and I had a commitment to this process, the concrete things that I could do to improve my health, and it made me feel proactive and like I was in control, and then everything just kind of happened a lot easier and a lot better for me because everything was moving in the right direction, mind and body included. So.
And how does emotion play in?
And I agree with that. I think that the patients that do the best are the ones that feel that they're in charge of their disease and that their disease is not in control of them. And so in both osteoarthritis and rheumatoid arthritis, that same aspect is important. However, in rheumatoid arthritis, because there's also dysfunction with the immune system, stress on the body, be it physical stress or physiologic stress like going into surgery, or even emotional stress. I've had patients that they'll come in and their joints are flaring, and it'll not necessarily be something physical that's happened to their body, but maybe a loved one has died, or there's something psychosocially going on at home that's stressful, and it's reacting because everything is all connected together. And so it's very important to be mindful of that connection, and not necessarily to brush it off and think, oh, my joints, oh, they're not really hurting, because they probably are if something else is going on.
Donna would like to know, how do you manage your symptoms?
How do I manage my symptoms? Well, for the most part, I listen to the messages that my body's telling me. So when my knees are hurting, I back off and I don't do as much. I take positive action towards my diet, and when I was competing, I took supplements. I no longer feel like I need supplements, and I worked really closely, like I said, with my physical therapist, and had a very specific strength program catered exactly for my needs and my joints.
And I also wanted to know, what is your view on joint replacement? Is that, you think, in your future?
It's possible. You know, I do have degenerating cartilage in my knees, and I have no idea if that will continue to happen into old age. Right now, I'm extremely physically active, and I feel extremely healthy. It's hard to imagine that I would be a candidate for knee replacement at some point, but it's definitely a possibility because I started damaging my cartilage at a pretty young age, and maybe before that time comes, there will be another solution. For someone like me, I wouldn't have to go for the full replacement.
You look like you want to jump in.
Well, I think they certainly are indicated and very helpful for certain people, depending on where they are in their arthritis progression and their age, obviously. Some of the things that Libby has mentioned is, having an early diagnosis, regrettably not with an Olympic athlete, but an early diagnosis where your physician can help guide you on, preventative strategies that really are very broad, from the emotional side to the physical conditioning, nutrition and weight loss, exercise and so forth. You're going to best ensure that your knees are going to have longevity, and you will, very, very reasonable that you'll never need a knee replacement. But for those who are committed to that lifestyle, it's not something you're just doing now, it's for your future. I think the chance of that, your knees staying reasonably healthy and being very active and physically, emotionally and physically well, are very high.
Right. And I think sometimes people have a sense that aging or arthritis is a normal part of aging, and I'd have to say that I don't agree with that, because if that was the case, then everybody at a certain point or certain age would need a knee replacement, and that's not true. So there's clearly other factors that are involved, and with Libby, being an active athlete, and other people, it might be other things in their life or genetics that cause some predisposition to arthritis. But I don't think it's something that's a certain endpoint to anybody who has arthritis, and no physician could tell anybody, well, for sure, your progression of arthritis is going to be this much every year. So I think it's always good to do everything and pursue everything you can to keep a healthy joint and healthy lifestyle.
Yeah. If I don't mind, I think that, again, the early diagnosis is so essential. We often see in the therapy world of people that are at their latter stages of arthritis, and it's hard for us, and probably for you as well. You're thinking, oh, if we could have really seen you 20 years ago, and Dr. Dingman feels the same. It's if you can assess it early and manage it early, your future from health and your function and your ability to do things down the road is really improved. Waiting too far down the road, there's a lot of limited approaches you can that are successful.
I had a question that I had never thought of, that someone wrote in and asked, can Botox injection relieve arthritis?
So Botox is a medication that's been used to relax the muscles. And so you might think that, well, if there's muscles then there's joints, but it's not been indicated for arthritis because it's not focusing on the joint itself. So no.
Sorry,
maybe
Botox.
to help wrinkles, but
If that's the story you're going to go with, that's the story you're going to go with. Well, let me ask, were your parents concerned about the impact all the skiing was having on your body?
I think they definitely were concerned. I mean, first and foremost, they were supporting me. I was very lucky to have parents who never pushed me, but just supported me in my pursuit of my dream. But they never really talked about it, but I have to imagine that it was hard for them to. I know that my mom hated getting the telephone calls from Europe that I had hurt myself, and you know, that's no good for a parent, not good news. But you know, they supported me. They knew I loved to be active, and they knew that I loved to ski, and I know that some people were a little bit wary about the fact that I did continue to compete after I had gotten my diagnosis, but because I was really tactful about what I was doing, and luckily I retired at what I feel is a really smart time in my career before I did even further damage. I think I really mitigated the risk of what I was doing. Considering, I mean, it was a dangerous sport, and I was putting a lot of heavy loads and a lot of demand on my body and my joints.
But it's nice to know that you did very well, even after your race. You made the U.S. Olympic ski team. You went on to compete in Trino.
Yeah.
That's pretty exciting.
Yeah, and what was
amazing.
really special was that I made the Olympic team just 10 months after my diagnosis, and that was, you know, a big question mark when I was diagnosed. I wasn't sure if I was ever going to compete again or even ski again. There's a lot of uncertainty, and then to be able to make the Olympic team so soon after a pretty scary injury and diagnosis was a huge accomplishment, something I'm really proud of.
Well, then, from that question, it begs me, what advice do you give to parents whose children are extremely into athletics? You're maybe worried about their joints, their health, especially their knees. It seems like knees are something.
Well, I'm an adult rheumatologist. I don't have as much that I'm working with younger kids, but I do have parents who have arthritis, and so they'll say, well, it's particularly the autoimmune arthritis, well, what does this mean? Am I going to be passing this on to my child? And it's not one of those things that's a one-to-one direct correlation. So I often tell them, you know, I want your child to be as active as possible, do everything they want, and then if you happen to see that something is changing, then clearly they need to get in and be evaluated. But overall, I think it's excellent for kids to be healthy, be active, be out there, and finding out what their passion is, and you know, maybe, who knows, they'll be the next Olympic skier. Or
Yeah, absolutely.
And what advice do you have?
I would say very similar. If there's things that become apparent that the child can, with the family's help, address. If there's weight issues, that's very important to address. Again, if it's determined that the child has some muscle imbalances that really are absolutely common at any age in life, that those need to be addressed with certain forms of strengthening or flexibility exercises, and again, yoga can be part of that, to address a muscle imbalance or those areas so it's not putting abnormal pressure on the joints. In the sporting world, one of the more recent things that's become a little bit more concerning is because it used to be most kids were involved in a lot of activities and did a lot of cross-training. High-level skiers do a lot of cross-training. But kids more and more are getting into one sport and not cross-training, and they're seeing a lot more repetitive injuries and stress to the joints because they're not mixing up their activities. So that's another thing we recommend to families and kids. Is that good, you think?
Oh my gosh, yeah, I can't say enough about cross-training.
Yeah.
I mean, especially for young ski racers, ski racing is a sport that rewards adaptability, and so really the more well-rounded of an athlete you are, the better you'll perform when you're going 80 miles an hour down a ski hill. And plus, it's a great way to grow up, so you don't get pigeonholed into doing one thing too seriously at a young age. I'm really grateful that I was able to do tons of different sports growing up, and I didn't get, just too intense into one thing at a young age.
Do any of your track records still stand?
I think that my pole vault record for the state of Washington has been blown out of the water. But I was one of the first female pole vaulters in the state, so
Wonderful.
I don't think that will ever, that's
change
it.
That one you get to hold on to.
Yeah.
So what advice do you have now for people who have just been given that diagnosis and they're looking at, oh, well, that's the end of my athletic career?
Well, I think number one is that you might have to change the way you approach things, but it doesn't mean you necessarily have to stop. I think with a close relationship with a physician and physical therapist, you can really kind of find a way to make something work, where you can pursue what you want to do to some capacity. I think staying physically active is one of the best things you can do. Absolutely. The more sedentary you become, the more stiff your joints become. And so it's kind of staying ahead of that and just staying healthy and fit and mobile and active, and then you kind of, the mental and emotional things follow along. When your body's happy, you'll be happy too. So.
And what advice do you have for athletes?
I'm not sure I could even add to that. I would just remind it's just the opposite for people, that the mortals out there who aren't Olympic athletes, that what we commonly do with the more typical individual, whether it be a child or adult, is trying to encourage them to be active. As Libby mentioned, Dr. Dingman, it's a critical aspect of everything in our life and our health, and certainly it affects arthritis. So for some of our patients, it really is trying to get them active where they weren't before, and trying to do that specifically based on what their arthritic condition is.
And Dr. Dingman, let's give you.
I think that overall, again, activity is important, but also not to expect that there's going to be one magic pill out there that's going to take care of it. Because I see a lot of my patients when they first come to me, well, I want that pill. Is it, whether it's a supplement or it's a prescription medication that is going to be the thing that takes it all away. And really, it's each patient has to take ownership of what's going on and be a partner with other people in their lives, be it their family, their friends, their healthcare providers, and working together to figure out the best solution that's going to fit into their lifestyle. Because if they can't find that they're going to be able to work and incorporate that in their lifestyle, then they're not going to stick with it.
Right.
And so,
And education,
and education, yes.
And where can they go to find out more?
So you can, to find out more, we're having an arthritis symposium that's just starting this, tonight, as well as tomorrow morning. And this is the third year. It's held at Saint Alphonsus.
For those, since the taping won't occur about that
right.
time, where could they go besides that?
So besides that, there's various websites, including the Arthritis Foundation. There's the Fit and Fall Proof classes, which are great ways of having patients get into some kind of exercise that is under supervised conditions. And also, Saint Alphonsus Rehabilitation Services is an excellent source for physical therapy.
Yeah.
Thank you. I'm afraid we've run out of time. It goes by
Okay.
really quickly. And if you want more information about where to find out more about arthritis and how to get treatment and where to find help, you can find all that and more information about Libby on our website. Go to idahoptv.org. You'll also find our conversation there, our web extra conversation, and much more. So go ahead and click on that and take a look for us on Facebook. Thanks for joining us. We'll see you next time on Dialogue.
Presentation of Dialogue on Idaho Public Television is made possible through the generous support of the Laura Moore Cunningham Foundation, committed to fulfilling the Moore family's legacy of building the great state of Idaho. To order a copy of this program from Idaho Public Television, call our toll-free number or visit us on the World Wide Web